Last Sunday, we remember God exhorted us to be uncalculating in forgiving others. He asked us not just to forgive 7 times, but 77 times, which is a Hebrew way of saying always. In other words, we should be generous in forgiving. Why? This is the reason. We should be generous in forgiving because this is what God is doing to us. He forgives us always. And therefore, our way of forgiving others is not just for the sake of reconciling with the offender. It is our way of becoming like God. The theme of God's generosity continues in this Sunday's liturgy, but no longer focused anymore on forgiveness, but on seeking the good of people. Today we heard about the parable of the kingdom. What the kingdom is like. God hiring groups of workers at different times of the day. It is important to note that it is a parable about the kingdom. It is not a parable of the world. And therefore, the key to understanding the parable is to enter the mind of God. What Isaiah is talking about in the first reading, to understand the mind and the thoughts of God. And Isaiah reminded us that the thoughts of God are beyond our thoughts. That is why we need to understand the parable according to the mind of God. Now let us enter into the mind of God by going through the parable he narrated by Jesus. There was an owner of the vineyard who hired workers aron i-harvest ang iyang vineyard. He went to the marketplace. Mao kini ang dapit diin maghulat ang mga tao nga magtrabaho. Dito sila maghulat sa usa ka dapit. Ug unya, the owner of the vineyard, who represents God, hired the first group of workers. They started working at 6 o'clock in the morning. And they agreed for a certain wage. Usa ka denaryos. Sa ato, tingali, usa ka minimum wage. Ug ila katong gisabutan. And then they started to work. Ug ning balik na pod ang owner sa vineyard sa marketplace. Ug doon na pa siya nagdaghan nakita nga mga wala pa ng trabaho, nagpaabot pa. And he hired them at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then another set of workers, 3 o'clock. Ug ning balik pagid siya sa 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, ug niya 5 o'clock. Usa na lang ka oras ang nahibilin sa pagtrabaho. Ug nangutana siya, why are you still here, standing idle? Ug niya sila miingon, because no one hired us. These people did not have work, not because they are lazy, but because they were not given opportunities to work. O kasagaran, ang mahibilin nga walay mo hire kanila, maukad tong mga tao nga mga tigulang na. Kadtong una ma-hire, maukad tong mga robust kaayo o lawas, maskulado o mga lawas. Kay makatrabaho sila og tarong, and they can endure the heat of the sun. Apan kadtong mga maluyahon ug mga tigulang na, wala na'y mokuha kanila. Ug kining mga tawhana nga magpaabot og trabaho in the marketplace, no work, no pay sila. Mao nga ang ilang ipakaon sa ilang pamilya magdepende kung sila kuhaon sa trabaho on that day. Kung walay mokuha sa ila og trabaho, wala sila'y ipakapakaon sa ilang anak o sa ilang pamilya. Ug dinhi nato makita ang generosity sa Ginoo. Bisan kadtong dili na kaayo niya mapuslan tungod sa ilang katigulangon o sa ilang kaluya, they are still welcome to work for the kingdom. Ug karon miabot ang katapusan nga oras sa ilang pagtrabaho. Ug unya ihatag na ang sweldo. Wala untay gubot kung ang giuna paghatagan og sweldo kadtong mga naulahi sa pagtrabaho o ang nag-una sa pagtrabaho. Apan ang nahitabo, giuna sa paghatag og sweldo kadtong ulahi nagtrabaho. Og nakita sa mga nahauna sa pagtrabaho, pila ang gisuhol kanila. Pareho gihapon, minimum wage. Og kadtong mga nag-una pagtrabaho nga nainitan pag-ayo sa adlaw og taas nga panahon sa pagtrabaho, they expected that they will receive more. Apan ang nahitabo, pareha ang ilang sweldo. Honestly speaking, kung kita kadto, unsay atong bation? Unsa kahi atong bation? Moingon ka kita nga, okay. Pareha mong sweldo, okay ra sa amo. Okay ka sa ato? I don't think so. Moingon ta, daya kaayo ka. Tanawa ang among mga panit. Pareha na ni panit ni Bishop. We work all day. Giantos na mo ang kainit sa adlaw. But parihara kami og suhol ni adtong usa ka oras nga nagtrabaho. That is an injustice. But God turned to them and said, no, I did not commit injustice because I followed our agreement that you will receive the day's wage, which is 1 denarius. Wala ako makahimo og inhustisya kanimo. Tungod kay gihatag nako unsay angay kanimo. Og nag-ingon ang master, ang tag-iya. O nagselos ka lang, tungod kay ako manggihatagon. What is jealousy? Jealousy is being able to see the blessings of others, but blinded in appreciating our own blessings. Envy enters when we begin to compare ourselves to others. Ug ang atong makita, mao ang ilang mga panalangin, ug dili nato makita, giunsa kita pagpanalangin sa Ginoo. The owner of the parable, who is God, looks at not just the welfare of the worker, apan lapad kaayo ang iyang nakita. Nakita niya dili lang kitong trabahante, kundi nakita niya ang mga miyembro sa iyang pamilya. Nga kung gamay lang ang iyang ihatag, ang mukaon ug ang iyang ipakaon dili lang siya, kundi ang iyang mga miyembro sa pamilya. God is so generous. What is the lesson of the parable? Here is the lesson of the parable. We are not Christians if our first concern is pay, salary. And this takes many forms. Pay can stand for I work in the church to be appreciated, to be applauded, to have some privileges, and to have that sense of entitlement. We are not Christians if our first concern is what we can get. The Christian works and serves for the joy in serving God and neighbor. If we serve God and neighbor, we do not compete. We do not compare ourselves to others. We just enjoy the opportunity and privilege in serving. Many times, our complaints in life arise not from true justice, but from envy. The parable is a warning to the disciples. The disciples are the early comers. Sila ang unang gitudluan ni Jesus about the kingdom. O sila ang unang mga missionaries for the kingdom. And Jesus is telling them, there will be late comers in the kingdom. Ayaw sila pagtanawa nga ubos. They are equally important like you. This is also a warning to the Jews, the chosen people. The Gentiles will be coming later, will be converted later, and do not think they are not equally important as you. It is also a warning to all of us. Sometimes we think that we are more important and we are more dignified than those people who serve the church at a later time or stage. And maybe, kung moadto na kita sa katapusan sa atong kinabuhi, ug kung grasyahan kita sa Ginoo, makasulod kita sa langit, tingali, many of us will be surprised. Uy, niaman si kuan dinhi. Palahubog man ni. Nganong niaman ni siya dinhi. Kunya nay magbalita sa imo nga, uy, nakasulod imong mother-in-law ni dinhi. Ang mother-in-law sa istoryahan, uy, ni dinhi ang imong kuan. Daughter-in-law. O nga nung nakalangit man ni nga, kadtong himatyo naman ni, ahya pa nangitag pare. Kadtong ligon pa ni, dili magini nako makita sa simbahan. They are latecomers, but they are loved by God. If we have come earlier, it should not give us a sense of entitlement. But our coming earlier in serving the kingdom should be considered by us as a privilege given to us by God. Not to feel jealous of the latecomers, but to be an inspiration to all those people who are still on the way to the kingdom. And when we see someone going back to God, it must be a reason for us to rejoice and to be happy that our very lives served as an inspiration to all those people who are led astray. We should think of others as our brothers and sisters, nga dili nato kinahanglan silusan, kundili higugmaon og atong giyahan. Last time, I ended my homily with a prayer of Saint Francis. This time, let me end a prayer composed by Saint Ignatius of Loyola. And he wrote this prayer in the 16th century, 400 years back. But this is a very nice prayer. This is a prayer for generosity. And together with him, we say, Dearest Lord, teach me to be generous. Teach me to serve you as I should, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil, to work, to serve, and not to seek for rest, to labor and not to seek for reward. This is only my interest, Lord, to know that I am doing your most holy will. And that is enough for me. Amen.